actually. Welcome to Yoga Pilates Fusion. So we're going to start, of course, in a reclining position. I'm going to do a reclining butterfly this morning with a little elevation in the chest. So I'm going to roll up my blanket, put that down the length of my spine. You can also just choose to lie down. And then I'm going to put my feet together with my knees open, and I'm going to use a little pillow to fill the space. That's, if I put my legs like that, there's like a little bit of a space right there that I'm just going to fill that space. That'll make it a little bit less intense. If you want to leave the space open, you can do that as well. So I usually like the bottom of the blanket to kind of land about the bottom of my rib cage, sometimes a little higher or a little bit lower, but some people will like it all the way down to the very top of the sacrum. Some people might prefer it really high, so it starts almost up by the shoulder blades. It might depend on how thick the blanket is. Okay, so I've got a little inner thigh, a little hip, a little bit of kind of a sense that my rib cage is lifting, and this is one of the reasons I like that, is that it sort of starts to work. There's a little bit of space on either side, on the back, and a little bit of space in the front. I can work on expanding my ribs as I breathe, try to get some movement going in the intercostal muscles that live between the ribs. I'm not sure how much they move when I'm sleeping, so it gives me a chance to work on that. And then both of my shoulders are sort of dropping off the edge of the blanket, so I'm getting a little bit of a stretch right here at the front of my chest, which are muscles that tend to tighten up as I lean over my computer, that sort of thing. I have a tendency to lean. A habit. Once you've got your physical body settled in, we're going to just dial all of the attention into the breath. I'm putting more of my emphasis on, in terms of action on the inhale, and then just sort of allowing the exhale to find its way out, relaxing everything. Maybe you find yourself doing that or doing the opposite, being a little bit more active on the exhale. Let's do 2 more breaths like that. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is straighten out my legs. So get rid of this pillow. And I'm gonna roll onto my side and take the blanket out from underneath me. And then once I get back on my back, it's a really lovely sort of impression left behind in my in my back muscles. Feels like that blanket is still kind of there, so I'm gonna press my back into the floor and give it a little rock. So it's almost like getting some movement in the muscles in my back without even moving. It's just a passive adjustment of my back, which as far as I'm concerned is delightful. But hopefully it's okay for you as well. So we're going to do a little bit of work with our shoulders. Since we've kind of begun that process, we'll go ahead and do a little bit more of that. So I'm just kind of scooching down my mat here until I've got plenty of room over my head. I'm going to leave my feet in this constructive rest position so that the legs are fairly comfortable and steady. So starting with reaching down towards my feet. Now I can do this movement without using my shoulders, but I'm going to use my shoulders. So reaching down, pulling the shoulders down, I'm going to reach all the way up overhead, and as I go, I'm trying to include the movement of my shoulder blades. So by the time I get to this point, I've got my shoulders quite up high, and then coming all the way back and down. So we're going to do that twice more. Reach it up and over. Reaching up and over. Now, on the way back this time, we're going to pause right at that point where we point up at the ceiling. So right now, my shoulders are as far forward as I can possibly make them, and then just still letting my arms hang out in that position. I'm going to pull my shoulders down so that my shoulder blades snuggle kind of back into my back, almost where they belong, and then reach it up. They come out around the edges, and then pulling them back into the floor, kind of tucking my shoulder blades in a little bit, and then reaching up. In a little bit, and then I'm going to reach over and grab my upper right arm with my left hand, pull my right shoulder blade off, so I'm kind of pulling it off my back, and then holding my arm as best I can, I'm going to try to draw that shoulder blade back with the resistance of my left arm, right? So my right shoulder blade is trying to tuck itself back into a neutral position, while simultaneously I'm trying to keep it away from that. So there's a stalemate, but the muscles underneath my shoulder blade and the rotator cuff area are the ones that are working here. So it's an isometric working of the rotator cuff. If there's any sharp shooting pain, you should definitely stop, but if not, take 2 more breaths. And I'm going to release all that effort, reach up towards the ceiling, and complete that movement pattern down. Now, as I do these next 2, coming up and over, I just want to notice if there's any difference between the right shoulder and the left, and making note of that so that when I do the other side, I can make more appropriate choices. So reaching up, coming all the way back. So for me, the right shoulder definitely has a different sense than the left. The shoulder blade seems to have a freer movement pattern. Now again, as I come back, I'm going to pause right at this point. Shoulders are completely forward, then tucking them back in, pressing them into the center of my back, pulling them out, reaching for the ceiling, tucking them back in, reaching for the ceiling, tucking them back in, and then reaching over and grabbing my left upper arm. I'm going to pull that to the right, and as I do that, kind of snuggle that shoulder blade to the best of my ability back into the center of my back. So my left shoulder blade is trying to work against the pressure of my right arm to draw that left arm into place. And don't forget to keep breathing, yogis. Sometimes I find myself when I do an effort like this kind of holding my breath. So we're going to do one more big breath. exhale, gently release. Okay, and then we'll take the shoulders back down, or arms back down, with the shoulders in play. All right, so hopefully that feels fairly interesting. We'll return to the core now. So keeping the legs in this position, we're gonna try to warm up just this kind of front band of our abdominals. So I've got my fingers laced together with a little sort of basket, so I can press my head back into the basket. Again, I want to avoid the tendency of trying to use my neck to lift myself. So I'm going to broaden through my elbows, press my head back into my hands, and then using the abdominal muscles, curl myself as far up off the floor as I can curl, which is about that much. So if you've got more curl, cool. Curl up as much as yours is going to work out. Try to keep the head pressing back. So we're really asking the abdominals to do this work. I notice when I get to the very top of my sort of range of motion here, how badly my neck wants to help. As I'm trying to sort of undermine that by pressing my head back, it's very interesting. Okay, one more of those. Excellent. So we're going to take the right leg, bring it up on top of the left. And you can leave your legs resting like this so that the left foot stays on the floor. We're going to take the left elbow over towards that right knee. You can also float the legs so that you wind up sort of with the legs sort of hovering above the pelvis, low back in a neutral position to start, and then curl up towards that knee as well. And we'll do two more of those. And then bringing the legs back to neutral, coming up the center. Just notice if there's a difference in the way the abdominals want to work. Having warmed up one set of obliques but not the other. One more of those. And then placing the left leg up on top, right elbows moving towards that left knee. And again, I'm trying to resist the urge to use anything other than abdominals to do this work. We'll do two more of these. All right, then resting the legs and giving yourself a nice full body stretch. We're going to curve to the left with both the torso and maybe even the legs. You can cross your right leg over the left leg if you like. And then try to kind of feel out how your shoulders should land. I usually like to sort of find a little bit of a stretch through the arm and the kind of armpit part of my upper back as well. But for other folks, it might be better to sort of bend the elbows, take the arms out a little wider like a goalpost or a saguaro cactus so that there's less pressure in the shoulders. So as we breathe, kind of feeling that right side lengthen, we're just warming up the obliques. Now we're sort of stretching them out a little bit. You may also notice this in the front of the hip and along the edge of the hip and thigh. So we're going to do two more breaths. Back to the center. Now, we're going to use the abdominals, now rather than using the abdominals to move, we're going to use the abdominals as stabilizers. So this is kind of the two halves of the warm-up today. So squeezing my abdominals in, drawing the navel in, and then that's just holding myself as still as possible through the shoulders and the hips. That's the notion. So we're going to take the right leg, grab hold of that guy, give it a little squeeze, And before we get to the leg movement, we can do some ankle movement. Give the foot a little spin. And then go the opposite direction with the spin. And then pointing and flexing. I'm trying to spread my toes out as I flex my foot back. Get a little bit of movement there as well. Now, I'm going to point the toe, see how that feels. You can also flex your foot, generally go for something a little more pointy. And I'm reaching up through this foot and then reaching down through the opposite leg, trying to keep the toes pointing straight up. And so this abdominals, leg work, that's the setup. I'm going to take my leg across, make a nice big circle out to the side, and try to use my abdominals to hold my torso nice and stable. And then, of course, I'm going to try to work in a range of motion that my hip joint is okay with. Now, when you get to the top, pause there. We're going to go a different pattern. So we're going to take the leg out to the side, sweep the legs together, come straight up the center. And again, my task is to try to use my abdominals to stabilize this movement through the torso. Leg is trying to drag me off center. One more of those. Good. So bringing the knee in, we're going to curl up towards that knee. You can reach down with both hands or use your hands behind your head as we did before. Lifting the opposite leg or keeping that foot on the ground as you need for stability. We're going to curl up a little bit extra. Stretch out, or again, lower the heel to the ground. Curl in a little bit more. So extending the leg as straight as you can and curling towards the bent one. Just a little bit. Carry on. Again, I'm avoiding using my neck to try to lift my torso. One more set. Now resting my right leg, I'm going to come up a little bit higher and rotate slightly so I have a little bit more room. Then I'm going to hold on to my left leg and spin my left foot in circles. And go the opposite direction with the circles. And then pointing and flexing. And then, giving that leg a nice big stretch. Again, I'm going to dial everything else into place. So these toes on the right side are going to turn up, reaching through both legs, drawing in through my navel, or drawing in through the sides of the waist and in through the navel. Taking the leg across, sweeping it out to the side, and trying to hold steady with everything in the torso. One more of those. And then choosing the opposite pattern, going out to the side, bringing it together and up the center. Again, kind of drawing in through the sides of the waist to help hold that steady. Last one of these. Ooh, beautiful. All right. So we're going to bring both knees in. And so keeping with this stabilization notion, we're going to try to hold the spine in this flexed position. So using the abdominals to hold the position, I can use the arms like down by my heels and extend the legs and arms out and then curl in. Or I could continue the support of my head and just work with the legs, or somewhere in between. Legs and arms extend and return to a little bit of neck support. All right. So we'll do 3 more of these. Holding steady with that torso. All right. Now, once we come down, we're going to give ourselves a nice big long stretch. Back down my mat a little bit. And then curl ourselves over to the left, ending with this other side of the banana. Letting the left side lengthen out after all that in-between work. I was wondering if my left side was feeling left out of the stretch earlier. It feels really nice right now. Working on trying to stretch my rib cage out, but because this part of my ribs is already a little stretched, it's interesting to feel how the other lung has to try to do a little more work. So 2 more breaths. Come on back to the center, and hopefully we feel a little bit longer, a little more aware of the abdominal muscles. So let's work the other half of our core, the back side of it. Giving myself a little bit of movement here, and then we're going to flip over onto the belly. Okay, so working with the cobra pose, we're going to try to avoid, again, trying to use the neck to lift ourselves up. In the same way that we'll try to use the neck to flex the spine, we'll also try to use it to extend the spine. So we're going to try to let the neck and head go along for the ride. Now I'm starting with my hands a little higher than my shoulders, palms spread out and as close in towards my body, my torso, as possible to start with. So it sort of feels like my elbows want to hug in. So resting my forehead on the floor, I'm going to spin my shoulders in circles in one direction. And then the other. Just try to get some movement going. It's a little restricted where the hands are right now. Hugging the elbows towards the midline, I'm going to lift into cobra. And I'm lifting with the back muscles, not with the arms. The arms are here, though, so that I can pull against the floor and broaden my chest and shoulders. That's why it's called a cobra pose. Coming on down, sliding the hands back a half an inch to an inch. Circle in the shoulders. In both directions. I can tell my right shoulder blade is still a little stickier than my left. So I'm going to work more with my right shoulder as we go, but lifting into cobra. So now I'm going to spend a little bit more of my time sort of broadening out that right shoulder and then matching the left shoulder, pulling against the floor. Just seeing how high my back muscles will lift me. Elbows coming towards the center. And then coming down, sliding the hands back just a bit more. We'll do it one more time. And spin the shoulders the other way. Okay, coming up into cobra. Pull against the floor with the palms pressing down. Elbows moving towards the center line. Use your back muscles to lift yourself as high as you can. One more breath there. And we're going to come on down. Now, you can go back to a child's pose if you like, or come to all fours. And from there, we're going to do either sort of just settling into child's pose, if that was your choice, for a few breaths. Or you can settle into a few cat-cow shapes. And tucking and tilting the pelvis and moving through the upper back a little bit. All right, so we're going to bring all of everybody to all fours, or as close as we can get. Now, with the wrists, if it feels crummy where your wrists are, or where your hands are. You can try putting the hands slightly more in front. That might work. And then you can also put your elbow up on a block, sort of remove the wrist concerns. We're going to do a little spinal balance. So one leg is going to be up. In my case, I'm going to start with the right leg and the left arm. And so that wrist takes too much pressure. Make a choice there. And then we're going to curl in and stretch out. Oh, curl in and stretch out. Oh, curl in, stretch out one more time. Curling in, stretching out. Oh, and then taking it the opposite side. Reaching the left leg, right arm, curling in and stretching out. Oh, curl in, stretch out, curl in, stretch out. One more time. Curl in, stretch out. Oh. Now I'm going to go to downward dog, but you could also stick with the all fours cat shapes. And you want to avoid downward dog, you can choose just a different way of getting on your feet. We're going to use that, for me, I'm going to use it as a transition to get into a standing position. And because it's also fun all by itself, I'm going to use it to explore some length in my back and the backs of my legs. Once you've had enough downward dog, you can bring yourself, right now I'm hanging out in a forward bend because that feels kind of nice. We'll eventually bring ourselves all the way up to standing. Now, before we get into the flow of things, I'm going to do some little wrist movements. So first I'm just gonna clip my hair up so it won't be in my way. And then I'm gonna let my mountain pose kind of come into being, all but the arms. So with my feet sort of pressing a little bit into the floor, a little softness around the knees, we're just gonna circle the hands. Just notice, can you maintain some of that posture while circling? Go the other direction. And then we're going to reach the arms out in front of us, kind of spreading the pinky finger and the thumb as far away from each other as possible, and pulling the hands back towards your, as much as you can towards the top of the forearm there. We're going to bring the arms down, make a fist, extend the arms behind us and try to curl the fists in towards the lower half of the forearm. So we're feeling the stretch across the top of the wrist. All right, so bringing the hands back to center, give them a little shake, reaching the arms up in front and trying to pull back. So we're stretching the bottom of the forearm, and then the pinkies and the thumbs reaching as far away from each other as we can get. And then reaching back behind us, making a fist and trying to draw that fist in, curling the hands in towards the bottom of the forearm. So we're stretching the top of the forearm. And coming back to the center and giving the arms a little shimmy. And if you want to come back to the turned out mountain pose, you can, but otherwise you can just let your arms relax. And feel mountain pose mostly emanating from the core. And then taking a nice big breath, reaching the arms overhead. Taking that right wrist in your hand, giving yourself a stretch over to the left. Coming back to center, picking the left leg up. We're going to try for a tree pose. If it gets wobbly, we'll just catch and come back. Not that I've wobbled, can I stay straight? Taking a nice big breath. Lifting that left leg up, I'm going to step back into a warrior one. Okay, so I want my hips to follow the diagonal that my foot is going to create by pressing the ankle into the floor, heel into the floor. Bringing the arms up I'm gonna bring my hands around behind me. Now, you can grab hold of your wrist, lace your fingers together, do a reverse prayer, or just kind of put one hand on top of the other behind your back. We're gonna fold towards this front leg, keeping that front leg bent for now. And then as best we can, maintaining the stability, we're gonna straighten out the front leg and then bend it back and dangle in. And then straighten out the front leg. This might mean you have to lift your torso a bit. And then bend the knee and fall forward a bit. And then one more time, straightening out that front leg. Releasing the arms. Now, option number one is that I can stay right here. Option two, I can step both feet up together and hang out with a forward bend. The third option is to step back to down dog and stay there. And then the fourth option is to add a sun salutation with as much plank as you might like, or some extra push-ups if you're feeling fancy. And then we're all going to wind up together. So we're going to take the right leg up. We're going to step that foot forward, and wherever it lands, I'm going to put all my weight there, and then we're picking up this left leg and lifting it up as high as I can for a standing splits balance. I might see if I can take both my hands off the floor and hold on to my standing leg. It's a big hamstring stretch here. Pulling that left knee in, I'm going to put both feet on the floor. Come up halfway, all the way to standing. Give yourself a nice big stretch. And then we'll return to mountain pose. And if you didn't quite line up where you want to be, just put yourself there now. Notice if there's a difference on your left side and your right side. Taking a nice big breath, reaching up. Grab the left wrist, stretch over to the right. Coming back to center, putting all the weight on that left leg. We're going to make a tree pose. I'm going to pick up this right leg and step myself back. And again, trying to find my warrior one. Pulling my elbows back, reaching back behind me. Last time I put my left hand on the top, so I'm going to put my right hand on the top, right? So if you lace your fingers together, put a different finger on top. See what happens. So we're going to come into this bowing warrior, this humble warrior. And then keeping my arms bound, if I can, I'm going to straighten out my front leg. And then bend the knee. And straighten out the front leg. Bend the knee. Ooh. Straightening out the front leg. I might linger there for a breath. And then bending the knee. You'll choose one of those options. Stay here, step up to the top, step back to down dog. Add the sun salutation. So from the sun salutation, when you get there, you'll come back to down dog, take a nice big breath, lift that left leg up, and then you're going to step the left leg forward. And if you're in this position, we're just going to lean into that left leg, take the right leg up, and see if we can balance. Catch it if you fall. Lifting through that right leg, 2 more breaths. And then we'll bring the right knee in, put the foot down, come up halfway. Exhale, fold. Come all the way to standing, give yourself a nice big stretch. And then we'll return to mountain pose and see where it landed us. And just notice if the quality of your mountain pose this round is any different than the quality of the mountain pose from last round. Taking a nice big breath, we're going to reach up. Nice tall stretch, come to chair pose. Now you can deepen your chair pose if you like. I'm gonna bring my hands to my heart, and then we're gonna twist towards the right. Again, you can deepen in and try to bring that left elbow around your right knee if you care to, or keep it a little lighter. As your knees dictate is appropriate. And one more big breath here. And we're gonna come back to the center, shifting the weight into the right leg. We're gonna pick this left leg up and try to step ourselves back into a warrior two. Now, I don't have to turn my hips all the way to the side. In fact, when I try to do that, this leg wants to collapse forward. So instead, with this slightly more open position, I'm still gonna follow the dictates of my hip sockets in leg placement and try to hold this leg nice and steady. Coming back to reverse warrior and over to my side angle so I get a little mermaid, the Pilates move, mixed in with this warrior two, which makes for a little bit more wobble. I have to use more muscles to stabilize. So we'll do this a few more rounds. One more. Now, going back to our hamstring stretch, I'm going to straighten out my front leg and come into a triangle. You can have the arms extended like little para-eagle wings. You can put your hand on your hip. I'm going to do a little half bind. This is my favorite thing of the summer. And try to draw my arm sort of into a neutral position on the upper arm. This broadens my collarbone and neck muscles there. In addition to my hamstrings and glutes and other things. So one more breath with our triangle pose. And then I'm going to release everything, bend my front knee a little bit, and swing myself around into a wide angle forward bend. Now, we're going to do one on each side. So you can approach these poses with a real sort of dangly, like I'm just going to hang out here. Or you can be much more energetic about your approach to the pose, right? And I'm going to do one dangly one and one a little bit more energetic. So for now, just noticing how different this right leg feels compared to my left. So I press both my feet into the floor and take advantage of this loose upper back. Do a little movement there. Now, coming from this, we're going to do one of three things. You're either going to just stay here and then join us when we get to the downward dog shape, or you can come forward and bring this back foot in about halfway and hang out here, or you can step back to dog and either stop there or finish the sun salutation. So one of those choices is going to be right for you. Now, once you get back to down dog, you're going to take a nice big breath, lift your right leg up behind you. As you exhale, you'll bring that knee in and step it forward, and then this is where we're all going to join up together. So we're all going to put the weight into this right leg, pick our left leg up to the toe, leaving the right hand on the floor. We're going to see if we can pick the left one up and come to a half moon balance. Maybe you use a block under your hand, or you hold onto a piece of furniture. That's okay too. Whatever will get you to the shape. Kind of lifting from your core, taking one more big breath, and then we're going to bring this left foot in, and as I come up halfway and all the way to standing, I want to clue into the difference between my right hip, right butt cheek, right side of my waist. It feels like I'm taller on my right side even. Ooh. That was a massive amount of work for our right leg and hip. I'm noticing. Taking a nice big breath, reaching the arms up, nice long stretch. Come into chair pose. Maybe you leave your arms up, but I'm gonna take my hands to my heart. And then we're gonna twist around to the left. Again, you can sink it in a little deeper, keep it a little more up, a little more shallow in the chair part, but long in the spine. And one more breath in this twisting chair. We're gonna come back to center, lean into that left leg, pick up the right leg, and step ourselves into warrior two. When you feel steady, adding your mermaid action here, reverse warrior to side angle. Again, moving from the core, trying to feel the side waist activity. Oh, and maybe there's a little bit of wobble to it as well. We'll work with what we got. Oh. Good, one more of those. All right, so then we're gonna come to our triangle pose. And again, you get to choose how you orient your triangle. Arm positions, whether you look up or down, how much hamstring stretch you get by going deeper or less deep with your hand. Oh, how much longer can your spine become? One more breath here. And I'm gonna release my bind and come around to a wide angle forward bend. And this one I'm gonna kind of sway over to the right, being mindful of my hamstrings. That's what I'm getting it stretching here, and then coming over to my left. Oh. Coming back to the center. Oh. Rinsing out any tension from my shoulders and my neck. Oh. And then one more time, coming over towards my right, trying to feel out the appropriate amount of stretch there. Coming over to my left. Similarly. And then we're gonna make a decision about what we're gonna do. So you can stay here and swirl around while other people might be transitioning out of their sun salutation. You can work your way in and kind of hover like I did last time, or you can step back and either hold dog or add your sun salutation in there. So we wind up all together eventually, taking our left leg and stepping it forward or leaning into it if it's already forward. And then we're gonna take ourselves to a half moon balance on this other side, lifting through the core as best you can. Whee! Taking one more breath. Then I'm gonna bring my right leg in. Come up halfway, all the way to standing. Oh, nice big stretch, a little shimmy, and a mountain pose. Again, I just want to feel where that mountain pose landed me. Oh. And I can now feel how both my hips feel a little more even. And everything feels a little lighter, but notice what's true for you. Now we're gonna take a nice big breath. Lift up, we're gonna exhale, and we're gonna try to sit down onto the floor. I'm gonna execute that first by coming to a squat. And some people can just sit right down from there. And then some of us will do a couple of extra moves. Once we're sitting down, we're gonna bring it right into a boat pose. And you can take your boat pose into a teaser if you like. Taking that boat out nice and long and lowering toward the floor and then coming back up. Or you can hold a boat pose that you like. Ooh. Lifting through the heart. Now, when you've done enough teasers or enough boat pose to feel good about it, we're gonna come to a seated position and we're gonna take the legs a little on the wide side. So whatever an average yoga mat might be, about that wide, I'm a little tiny bit to the outside edge of that. I just don't want to go so wide and it feels like my pelvis wants to lean backwards. And if there's no choice, then you can either sit up on something or bend your knees and fill in the gap so that you can get your pelvis sitting up nice and tall. We're going to take the arms out and then lifting through the breastbone, we'll twist towards one side. I'm going to my left first, I don't know why. But 1, 2, 3, actually probably because that's my easiest twisting side. 1, 2, so my brain naturally prefers it. 1, 2, 3, coming back, nice tall lift. 1, 2, I'm trying to feel this with my obliques, take it into the deepest part of the twist that I can. Good, nice and tall. 1, 2, 3, not using the shoulders to twist, but having to use the abdominals to carry this big, wide, expansive shoulders with my arms out if I can. 1, 2, 3, nice tall sit. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Notice how it might be trying to pull your hips around so you can keep your hips steady. 1 more time. 2, 3, sitting up tall. 1, 2, 3. Good, coming back to the middle. We're gonna lie down on the right side. So essentially I'm just gonna tilt myself over. Now I rest my head rather on my right arm. You can also do this with the elbow under you, but there's a tendency to want to collapse into the shoulder or to do that when not paying attention, and that's also going to be tricky for the neck muscles. So for any reason those will sound like a drag, you can come to this position, but otherwise you can hold the other one. Just make sure you're lifting up away from your shoulder. Now I'm going to steady myself and decide how much work is the appropriate amount of work for my torso to keep myself still. So I can swing my legs forward a little bit, and that's gonna be more stable, lining my legs up with my torso, pressing the bottom leg into the floor. Nice in-between zone, lifting my bottom leg and trying to hover with my legs laid with my torso. That's a lot more work to stabilize. So if I want the extra attention to my core, I might go for that option. So the leg is going to make a very simple movement. We're going to go up with a pointed toe, flex the foot, reaching through the heel, come down. Coming up, reaching through the top of the leg, coming down, reaching through the bottom of the leg. And that's it. So if I want a little bit more stability, I can also put my arm up front. And then if I want to go for a little bit more challenge, I can bring the arm straight up. Now I have to manage that shoulder as well, right? Somewhere in between is the hip. We're going to do that one more time. Oh, beautiful. Now we're going to bring the feet behind us, lifting the feet. So I don't want to lean with my hip forward, so I'm going to try to hold my hip steady. And all of the forward movement is coming from an internal rotation at the hip. So there will be an appropriate amount of lift in the legs to achieve that movement. Hold that steady with the sides of your waist squeezing in. We're going to open the knee, legs, kick out if that feels okay for the knee. Bring the toes together and then bring the knees back together. Open the knees, extend if you care to, toes together, knees together. And move like you're underwater. So we want the movement to be super smooth and almost like it's slightly in slow motion. So we're going to do 3 more of these. And there's the third one. So now I'm going to bring the legs all the way out straight, taking this leg across the center line. You can put the foot on the ground or stretch the leg out in front of you. And then I'm going to lift with the leg that's on the bottom, hug in the side of my waist, and then pulse it up a little higher for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Bring in both legs in front of me. This leg that's on top is my left one. I'm going to remember that. So we're coming back to a seated position. I'm going to put my left leg up on top of my right. And it might be that the knees cross. It might be that I have one shin stacked on top of the other. It might be that I'm in a cross-legged sitting position with that left leg in front. Whatever your hips will go for. And then sit up nice and tall, and if there's already sensation here, don't go any further. Why would you? But if there's not, then you can lean into it by bringing the pelvis forward. Some folks will find it easy to lean forward so much that they rest on their legs or on the floor with the elbows. It's a big stretch for me. I wonder if it is for you guys too. Take in 2 more breaths. Oh, feels nice to let it go. So we'll do that first. And then we're going to go over to the left side. So again, choosing the appropriate position for your neck and head to rest in. I'm going to try to stack my hips and feel that slightly wobbly tendency, right? So I'm going to control that with my legs. Squeeze in through the sides of the waist. And then with the legs slightly externally rotated, I'm going to take the leg up with a pointed toe and down with a flexed foot. Try to hold my torso nice and stable as I do that movement. Oh, I'm trying to stretch my leg out just a little bit. Make it a little bit longer. A little bit longer each time I try to lift it or put it down. 2 more of those. Try not to let my hips lean back as I lift that leg. So now bringing the legs behind me, and again, there might be a tendency for my hip to want to dip forward. So I'm going to really keep it steady and make all of the internal movement happen at my hip joint, not at my core. So holding steady with the core, knees open, extend, come back, and close. And again, the extension is optional. You can just hold it and bring it back together based on how your knee feels about that extension. It does make it harder for your hip to hold stable, which is part of the idea. Moving like we're underwater. 4 more. To the 4th one, we're going to straighten out the legs. This top leg is coming over the top. Again, you decide whether your foot's on the ground or the leg's out straight. And then I'm going to reach out through the leg that's on the bottom, in this case the left one. Make sure my hips are nice and steady. I'm not leaning back. And then I'm going to pulse that leg up. 4, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then I'm returning to my seated position. This right leg now is going to be the one that's on top. Ooh, and again, once I just did all this work with this hip, so I get a lot of feedback. So my body normally is very comfortable leaning forward, but because of all that work I just did, I can feel it now. I'm just staying nice and tall. Your pose might be a little different. Ooh. And take a couple more breaths here. And then you lean back and unpretzel your legs. It feels so good. Now, some of you might have to go off to work now. You might have those kinds of schedules that dictate it's time to go. So if that's the case, thank you for joining me. Namaste. And if you have time, we're going to do some Shavasana. So I have the opportunity to do one more kind of sort of like a boat pose to roll myself down one vertebrae at a time to get to my Shavasana. So I'm going to take the opportunity to roll myself down as slow as I can. And then once I get down here, I'm going to use this pillow under my legs so my low back is happier. But before I even do that, do little windshield wipers. You could do a little happy baby. And then stretch out. Snuggling my shoulder blades into the center of my back. I'm going to decide how wide my arms should go. And right now, lately, starfish feels really nice. It's kind of letting the arms and legs sort of expand out like a star. But you might like your arms held a little closer to the body. That's fine. The main point of Shavasana, corpse pose, is to relax everything. I'm going to try to let go of all muscle tension. So start at the top of your head and work your way down, letting go of any tension in the scalp, sides of the head, or the forehead. Let your eyes grow a little deeper, a little kinder. Looking out onto the world with a little bit of compassion. Let your jaw relax a little bit. Let the lips get so soft and fluffy that they invite a tiny smile, maybe. Let the shoulders and the chest muscles and upper back all relax. We don't have to carry any burdens right now. We can put those down for a moment. Notice the abdominal muscles, let those relax. They've been working hard, so now it's their chance to relax and have vacation. Relax the hips and down through your legs, even to the toes. We'll just pause here for a few minutes. Bring your attention very gently back to your breath. And similarly to how we may have noticed the breath at the beginning, just notice the movement of the breath through the body. Take a breath so deep you can feel it to your toes. Let go with a big deep sigh. Starting with a little bit of movement, a little bit of stretching. We'll come around to a seated position. Oh. As you like. Thank you so much for joining me for some yoga Pilates fusion this morning. Let's take a big breath together. And a big sigh. Namaste.